Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dorian Show. I was gonna shoot this podcast yesterday night, by the way, but then I lost my voice because I got suckered into getting into a political argument with a friend, which is a very bad idea. A political argument never resolves anything. It's just a waste of time, especially if you consider yourself not that political. I don't think I'm very political. So it feels like such a waste of time to get drawn into like something that I don't even care about that much. But anyway, I was going to talk about something more fun like Pokemon cards, but I can't because I'm trying to unpack why political arguments never work out. And I was thinking about this yesterday because I was like, I want to talk about Pokemon fights, but I can't because me and my friend have had these like political talks a couple times. I try to stay away from them, but sometimes they get you in, dude. They reel you in. You know what I mean? By asking you like something or saying something that you just can't let slide. You know what I mean? Like there's some things that I can't let slide. And it usually comes with like a logical fallacy. And if you're listening to this, my bad, dude. I'm sorry you have to hear this, but it is a logical fallacy that makes me need to confront something for a party that I don't even like align truly with. So, well, let me just start with talking about what the argument stemmed from. The topic came up, and we've talked about this before. My friend was talking about how he was discussing with his girlfriend. My friend, by the way, very liberal. His girlfriend, very liberal. But my friend was talking about Trump's tariffs or whatever, right? And he was trying to talk to his girlfriend. He was trying to be open-minded and was saying something like, what did he say? He said, oh, yeah, there's an argument that the tariffs that Trump has imposed on the other countries have some benefit, right? And the benefit is bringing manufacturing jobs back to the United States. And my friend, being like a union member, was like, hey, this is actually good for union jobs. You know what I mean? And it's an argument. I mean, I would personally say like tariffs are bad because it leads to inflation. But there's an argument to be made that the tariffs were good for specifically the manufacturing industry in the United States, right? Like there's an argument for that, even though it leads to inflation, it leads to inefficient markets. As someone that cares about markets, it'll just make everything more pricey for everyone else. But then, there's an argument for people that are actually working in a manufacturing job that it's good for them. It's good for the supply chain, because during COVID, we weren't able to get like medication, like Tylenol or whatever, and masks because we were getting all that stuff from overseas. And then China was like, no, we're going to keep all these for ourselves. And we're like, oh, shoot, we don't have Tylenol or whatever. So there's also a benefit to that. Right, so the premise is like there can be a benefit from these the Trump tariffs, but as he explained it, he was like, actually, he was wrong and his girlfriend was right, and his girlfriend's main argument is because no, it's not good because Trump is inherently bad and he is incapable of doing anything that is good, which I was like, what? Like, he's not my guy, but if you say there's a policy that he's did that might be beneficial to at least some group of people, like I'm willing to hear it out, right? If there's a logical reasoning behind it. But then my friend was he like completely backtracked. He was just like, yeah, actually, there's actually fewer manufacturing than ever. And I was like, hold up, this is now insane. You know what I mean? Like, this is insane. He just told me that he was using reason to back up a point, and then he completely gave up on it because the default ideology that whatever, like Trump is bad, and therefore the fact that manufacturing has come back is actually not a fact. And he's saying like manufacturing hasn't come back, and I had to like fact check him. I was like, hold up, easy. easy. Let's do this reason and let's use facts. So I had him chat GPT. He was just like, no, manufacturing's not back. Actually, it's been lower than ever. I was like, okay, we could look this up. I told him to chat GPT because now we have chat GPT. It's crazy that we don't use this all the time. So I asked him, I was like, okay, has manufacturing jobs or manufacturing in the United States gone up since the Biden presidency? And I know it has. And the reason why I know it has is because I follow the stock market, right? And I follow all these companies. All these companies are saying like, hey, we're going to build all these chip manufacturing back in the United States. We're going to do this. We're going to build data centers here. And then a turbine company, GE Vernova, which makes like gas-powered turbines, stock is going up the roof because they're like, oh yeah, we need gas to power all these like manufacturing stuff and data centers in the United States. We're going to need a lot of energy. So the stocks are going up, right? It's going up crazy. So I'm following. So I know this is true. I know this is true because companies have said they are, and they have started to build stuff here in the U.S. So I asked them to chat GPT it. And then it turns out, it was the fact is right? There's more manufacturing job because of the tariffs. That there are more manufacturing back in the U.S. And then my other friend that's sitting next to him, also very liberal, and for whatever reason. Well, I know the reason. I'm going to get to it, but he was just like, "Well, maybe they were going to build these factories anyways. How do you know it's because of the tariffs? Maybe they were going to do it anyways." Well, I was like, maybe, but what's the more logic? What is the more logical cause and effect of why a company would build manufacturing in the United States, right? Like things don't just happen in a vacuum, right? Like, why would manufacturing that's been going on overseas for the last 2-3 decades? They've been moving overseas the last 2 decades. Why would all of a sudden they would change and bring it back, right? So a logical reasoning, and it might not be the whole reason why jobs are coming back, but certainly at least a little bit, right? Certainly part of it is because tariffs on other countries, imports are getting so high, especially Trump's going fucking crazy. He was like, man, 1,000% on taxes, right? And it makes it no longer competitive for all these companies to import stuff that there's high demand for, and they don't want to lose out on the sale. So they're like, okay, now it's more cost effective for us to move some of the manufacturing back to the United States so we could like escape the tariffs. And this is a logical reasoning, right? This is a logical reasoning to say that the tariffs made prices become higher for the imports, so companies would come back to the U.S. to manufacture. It's reasonable. It's logical, right? So they went from the premise that the tariffs brought more jobs back to the United States, more manufacturing jobs to the United States. Then he said that no, actually, it's not true because his girlfriend said that Trump is evil or whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's a factual lie. And then we proved that it's a fact that the manufacturing job has gone up, right, because of the tariffs, good or bad, But the fact is, manufacturing has gone up, and then they changed the argument again, saying like, "Oh, you can't attribute the jobs coming back and manufacturing coming back due to the tariffs," which, by the way, are gone. By the way, the Supreme Court struck down the tariffs. So now they're saying like, "Oh, it's not because of the tariffs. The jobs are coming back just because they were going to do it anyways." And I'm like, how many loops do you have to jump through? This mental gymnastics you have to go through to convince yourself against the facts, against reasoning, against logic. That's it. Like I wasn't even so much like arguing for a political side. I was just saying like, what? The whole thing I was saying is like tariffs brought manufacturing back. That was trying to argue, and then it just like kept evolving, right? It went from no, it did not, which is. I'm repeating myself now. They went from, okay, manufacturing actually did not come back. And I was like, okay, that's false. We could chat GPT it. And then once we established the fact that manufacturing is back, they moved the fucking argument to well, actually, you don't know it's because of the tariffs and manufacturing back. But I was like, what are the other? I didn't say it was the only reason, but it certainly is a compelling reason, isn't it? The higher prices in overseas is going to make you want to manufacture stuff here, so you could bypass the tariffs. Is that not a logical thought? And they're like, no, they could just be doing it anyways. I was like, dude, what? Things just happen in a vacuum. Like all of a sudden, all these companies are just building back in the U.S. just because, no reason at all, just because. And then it reached breaking point because I was like, what are we talking about here? They keep moving the discussion. Remember, we're talking about manufacturing, and somehow at the end, we got to like racism. And I was like, what is going on? What the hell is going on? We're talking about manufacturing in the United States, and now we're talking about like fucking slavery 100 years ago. I was like, what is going on here? What is going on here? And then at the very end, maybe like, it was probably went on for like way longer, 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. We were just fucking going back and forth and nothing happened. At the end of it, one of my friends, the main guy that I was talking to, said this. He basically said, he's like, you could pull out 20 facts and I still won't change the way I believe. And I was like, then why are we even talking about this, dude? If you're not able to be persuaded by facts and reasoning, then why the fuck are we talking about this? You know what I mean? Like politics is, you know what politics discussion sounds like? It really feels like two deaf mute people arguing over something without sign languages. They're just fucking bitching and moaning at each other. It's kind of crazy. So I'm thinking like, why is it like we're speaking two different languages? Because in my perspective, I was bodying him, dude, just dropping facts and facts and facts in a body bag. Destroying their logic. But they're like, they're obviously not arguing based on logic. They're arguing based on ideology. And ideology is something that traps, like I would say, traps the people on the far right and the far left. And I would argue, not even just the far left, a lot of the mainstream left, even though I think it's changing more recently. And the issue is and then the rest of the people are obviously in the middle, or independents, or as I call myself, which is kind of a snobby thing to call yourself. Like, I'm an independent thinker, which I would say is true for me in this case, right? I don't toe either party lines. You know what I mean? Like, I look at stuff issue by issue. So actually, in the whole tariff thing, I think tariffs are bad, and I think some manufacturing coming back is good, but using tariffs as a way to do it is bad because it causes inflation. Like I say, it hurts the economy. You know what I mean? So I'm overall against it. But anyway, I consider myself an independent because I look at stuff issue by issue. I don't toe the party line. I could see something that's good and bad by like things that are good and bad that are done by each president during each presidency, right? And I truly think this. I'm not just saying I'm in the middle because I don't want to offend anybody, but it's true. Like, I don't give a fuck if I offend anyone. Politically, I think that liberals think I'm conservative, and then conservative thinks I'm liberal, right? Because I do from the liberal stance of it, or the left wing. I don't want to do liberal and conservative, but on the left wing stuff, I do believe in universal basic health care. I do believe in like the rights for like gay people to get married, or any adult to get married. And I believe in like abortion as it stands right now, more or less. But on the other side, towards like the side of the right, I believe in individualism. I believe in life, liberty, and property, which is actually a big thing. So a lot of people that like redistribution will call me right wing, and then people that don't think everyone should have affordable health care would think I'm left wing. Anyway. And I'm just kind of rambling my thoughts here because I'm like, I need to put this into words why political arguments should never happen. And mostly it doesn't ever work out because it's either ideology against ideology or facts against ideology. And there's no compromise for people with ideologies. Okay. So like the people in the middle could probably, get to an agreement somewhere, but like the people on the far left and the far right are it's basically a lost cause. There's really no reason you should do it. And if you're wondering, like, what is ideology? Ideology is just beliefs that are based on assumptions rather than facts, right? And then when people think, they make fun of like ideology, they usually just they make fun of the left, right? They're, the woke ideology or whatever. But the right has its own ideology. It's just a more long-standing ideology, which in the American right is connected to Judeo-Christian beliefs, which in itself is an ideology. Obviously, it's a long-standing religion, right? And when I say ideologies are based on assumptions, we'll start with the right, right? The ideology of the right is kind of based around like Christian beliefs, Judeo-Christian beliefs. So it comes with the assumptions that what? God is real, God is all-powerful, all-knowing, God is good. So now they have a spiritual authority that they lean on that like ascends all reason. This is why back in the day, or even some countries now, I'm talking about like not the US, but other countries, they still till this day, they will do horrendous things. They will massacre whole groups of people, millions of people, because they feel like there is a call from God to do God's calling, which is either take our land back or like these guys are infidels or whatever. So it gives them the moral authority to go do heinous stuff, where like if you apply logic and reason to it, it makes no sense, right? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, someone's living over there and you're like, okay, we should go over there and kill them all and take their land. And any reasonable person would be like, hey, that's not right. There's a, you know what I mean? That's their land. That's their home. There's people. They're people like us, right? It should be wrong to just murder someone and take their things. These are like reasonable ideas. But once you put on the ideology of religion on it, now it's like, it is God's will. It is God wants us to have this. God wants us to do this. And we must do it because it's a calling from God. And you can see how like the right-wing ideology gets fucked basically. But the good thing is, at least in a lot of westernized countries, and the United States specifically, they've gone through a process where what we call the Enlightenment, which is basically the idea that we should separate church and state, right? The government should take care of matters of everyday lives of people's life, like physical life and their stuff, basically. And then religion will take care of matters of the soul, which is two separate things. So during the Enlightenment, they were like, yeah, maybe we should stop doing some of this stuff. Like religion will be its own thing, and then government will be its own thing to basically protect the lives of people, right? So the Western countries have the Enlightenment. Who cares about reasoning, pursuit of truth, etc., etc. Now, I want to say, like, although I think the majority of the country, I'm talking about the U.S. again, like, really follows this Enlightenment approach. Like, we care about reasoning and facts and stuff. There's still, like, a section of the right that is a very strong section of the right, which is, like, the religious right, which is still very ideology-based beliefs, and like they base a lot of their action and their votes on these core assumptions of religion. And then before it gets left, I just want to say, like, politics is exactly like religion. Politics is religion, right? There's a set of tenets that you have to believe, and you can't stray from it, because if you stray from it, you're a fucking infidel and you get excommunicated, or you get judged, or you get, shamed or whatever. right? So think of that way. Politics are kind of religion. The right, more or less Judeo-Christian, at least beginnings. And then the left, which claims they don't have a religion, but they do. Like their religion is basically critical theory. And it's true. And then like a lot of people are like, no, it's not. You don't understand what critical theory is. You don't understand what critical race theory is. And then I don't even know why like the left does that. They kind of try to muddy the water on critical theory. It is really, sometimes it does get very confusing, but like it's, I don't know why they don't just, make it less confusing. I feel like a lot of people on the left don't even understand critical theory themselves. I mean, I don't even fully understand it too much, but I was basically taught this in high school, and you kind of get the sense of it just living in the United States. There's really just two factions, right? There's like the Enlightenment belief in the U.S. I'm not even saying the right. The Enlightenment, which I think a majority of people that are independent in the middle of the country believe in the Enlightenment, which is protection of life, liberty, and property, or the pursuit of happiness, and like the aspiration to like find truth or reasoning. But the left, basically, their religion is critical theory. And I think a lot of people, when they come down to it, they will agree it is, right? So critical theory is basically like looking at the power dynamics of the haves and have-nots, right? So a lot of like, it came from Marxism, the bourgeois and the fucking working class. Right, but that's what critical theory is. It's like the haves and have-nots, and they look through that prism, and then what it has led to recently is they've gone further with just basically the haves and the have-nots. They've gone into critical race theory, which is all about intersectionality, which they taught. I don't know. I'm not going to say I'm an expert at this, but I was taught this in high school. My high school is pretty progressive, so I think I have a pretty good understanding of what it is. But intersectionality is basically like you're not just experiencing the world as like one group, right? You're not just experiencing the world as like a poor person, or you're experiencing the world as a rich person. But then you're also experiencing the world as maybe a black person or Asian person or a Mexican person. But that's only one intersection, right? They're talking about multiple intersectionalities. So it's like my experience as a queer Asian woman with one leg or something like that. So they like separate everybody into groups. And they're basically saying like everyone has like a unique experience, which is true. But the issue is that it is based on the assumptions of what you face in these groups are fact, right? And I want to give you an example, right? Let's say I walk into a McDonald's, me, not anybody else, but me as me. I walk into a McDonald's and then no one is serving me, right? I walk into a McDonald's. I'm trying to get some fries, baby, and a double quarter pounder with cheese. Maybe some nuggets. Anyway, I go into the McDonald's and no one's serving me. And I notice immediately that everybody there seems to be ignoring me. None of them are Asian. And then immediately I jump to the conclusion that they are not serving me because I'm Asian. Because I noticed that they're not Asian and there's a bunch of workers around and they're not serving me. So in my mind, my mindset, I'm like, okay, this McDonald's is fucking racist. And in critical theory, they say that assumption is valid. Like my assumption that they're not serving me is valid, that they're a racist. Right? Because they want to take because they believe that the theory believes in those in power and those are not in power, and whatever truth and reasoning or how the world is set up right now it's based on the people with power, right? So in this case, when I walk into McDonald's, I don't have power for whatever reason because I'm Asian, I guess, and everybody else is white, I guess, that works there. And they're not serving me, so I'm like, they're discriminating against me. So the assumption is they are not serving me because they're racist. And it's a valid point because in this situation, I am the person that has no power, I guess. See, even when you even try to use logic to like explain critical theory, it's like it's almost like circular. It's like I don't have power, but like they're minimum wage workers. It's kind of like who's the one being oppressed here? I don't even know. Are the minimum wage workers being oppressed, or am I being oppressed because I'm Asian and they're not serving me this? Right? You could say I have more money than them, so I'm the oppressor, but then fucking McDonald's is. It's a large company, and so now I'm the one being oppressed, and McDonald's is the one in power. It gets quite confusing. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, in my mind, in this example, is they're not serving me because I'm Asian and they're racist. And in critical race theory, they're like, oh yeah, that's a valid reason. But in reality, there could be a myriad of reasons of why they're not serving me, right? Maybe the kitchen or the something that's broken in the kitchen, and everybody is like trying to fix that. So they're not trying to ignore me on purpose, but like they're like very occupied about fixing whatever issues going on in the kitchen. Maybe the person running the cashier is having a bad day. Maybe right before I came in, his boss made him clean up diarrhea in the bathroom, and now he comes out. He's like, God damn, dude, this job pays me nothing. This fat guy just want to order a bunch of fat food. Fuck him. Right? And there could be basically many reasons that they are not serving me, not based on my race. But they take, in critical theory, they take out that assumption, right? They assume that the beliefs or the feelings or how the oppressed, whoever they deem as oppressed, like their purview or their whatever they experience or how they perceive their experience to be valid and true. You know what I mean? So now it sets up a thing where it's like a religion, right? There's assumptions, right? There are assumptions that, there's not white supremacy, what was that? White privilege, that everybody has privilege because white people came over and established the country, I guess, in the beginning, and therefore every white person has privilege. It's based on an assumption. It's not based on any fact, right? Clearly you've seen white homeless people, right? And you're like, man, I got some white privilege. It doesn't make sense once you start to look at it in an individual basis. But anyway, these start with a set of assumptions, right? White people are bad. Well, first to start out with, like, white people have all the power. There's white privilege. And then it just fucking devolves into, like, white people are bad. They have all the stuff. So they want to change. They want to change all that stuff. And here's the other issue with critical theory is they don't have an enlightenment process. At least, the U.S., the right has gone through a lot of stuff where, a lot of people, like I said, are still captured by like the religious assumptions of ideologies, but the Western world has gone through an enlightenment where we're like, okay, let's pump the brakes on this ideology stuff. Let's separate church and state. Let's have government focus on things that matter to us as a free people, right? Like we want the government just to protect our life, liberty, and property, which is actually stems from Judeo-Christian beliefs, by the way. But I'm losing off track. But the thing is, critical theory is still based on an assumption. They've never moved on to the phase of the Enlightenment phase of a religion. And when you think about critical theory as a religion, that their beliefs are based on assumptions, right? All white people have privilege. All people of color are oppressed. All gay people are oppressed. When they base on these assumptions, then the facts really don't matter, right? So now they would have they're saying, okay, because there's an issue with the structure that we have at hand. We need to. My friend actually said this. Because we were talking about something else. I think about like immigration or something like that, and I was like overall immigration is good, but I was saying like maybe like having 10 to 20 million people coming over the border are unaccounted for could be harmful to the country, right? It could be harmful for the citizens, could be harmful for inflation, it could be harmful for the ability for people to work, et cetera, et cetera. And you could debate that, whatever. But what he said was, he was like, yeah, in our current system, we cannot accommodate 20 million immigrants a year or whatever. It is the system that has issues. So we need to change the system. And that is quite possibly like a leap too far, because as terrible or as not terrible, as flawed as the American system is, and certainly we do have a lot of flaws, I don't think it's a good idea to really dismantle our whole system in the U.S. Because at the end of the day, we do have the best country in the world. I don't think that's sure is debatable, but I think again, like if you're taking ideology out of it, like it's factual truth. Like we are the best country, the most freedoms. You know what I mean? Like sure, like there's like a wealth divide, but like if there's nobody out here trying to like take your life, you know, take away your freedoms, take away your property, even though sometimes they can. Whereas other countries, they're like, oh yeah, you know, we're gonna kill you because you don't share the same beliefs as us, right? A lot of these countries are doing that, right? Liberty, you have no freedom of speech. If you say what you believe in, you go to jail. They'll just take your stuff. They will redistribute your stuff. And unfortunately, this is what the left and a lot of people that believe in critical theory, not all the left, by the way. When I talk about the left, I'm talking about like the most left-leaning of the party that doesn't like America. Whereas I feel like there's a lot of moderate Democrats or whatever that just kind of wants more free stuff, which is fine. Like I want free healthcare. But some of them are saying they see the American structure as a problem and they want to destroy and dismantle it. And then you have to think like, okay, so if they're going to dismantle it, what kind of system they want to put in place? And it's pretty obvious. And even in critical theory in itself, which came from Marxism, is that they want to go to a more communist state, which you could see in like their policies, right? You could see the policies, the democratic policies, like the whole DEI. It's about equity, to talk about equity every single day. They're doing it less of it now because it's proven to be very unpopular amongst the American people. That's why they lost the popular vote this time around. But the whole thing of the left is about equity, right? So there's a difference between equality and equity. Equality is basically you have equal rights. Everybody's treated the same. But in equity, which the left talks about a lot, and you hear this a lot coming from like if you're in like in a large city, or if you go to any university, the idea of equity comes up a lot. I've been hearing equity for the past, when did I graduate from high school? 20 years ago. I've been hearing about equity for over 20 years. Like it's been in the ether, as they say. And equity is the equality of outcomes, right? So they want if there are like 100 doctors, like there should be an equal numbers of men and women, and then there should be an equal number of Black, Asian, Latino doctors or whatever. So they care about the results, right? They think there's no true there's no true like being equal until the outcomes reflect that, which is based on assumptions, right? The assumptions they base on assumptions. They base assumptions that we don't have that now. Whereas, let's say we have like 100 doctors, and the reason why doctors are not equal in terms of distribution for race, gender, and whatever else, mental health or whatever identifying factors they want. The assumption is that we don't have that distribution because of racism, sexism, whatever, ableism, whatever other ism is. It's based on that assumption, right? Even though we know in reality it could be a myriad of other stuff. It could be like their ability to test well, go to school or whatever. But then they would argue like, well, certain people will have access to better schools, blah, 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 blah. Which is true. But again, they're focusing on the result. They're focused on equity, right? So when you say like some people have better access to schools, then, maybe we should focus on making those schools better. Right? Wouldn't that be like a good solution? It's like, okay, if certain groups of people are getting better access to education and then other people that are coming from lower income or any ethnic minority communities, so okay, then shouldn't we put some, should we make those schools better? And arguably we put in a lot of resources, public funding into these public schools, but for some reason that for another day of topic, it doesn't seem to help. Like it's just fucking, you're just burning money. But anyway, so they want a freaking equality of outcomes. So how do you get equality of outcomes? Then you start placing people, you start giving people special treatment to get into some of these places, right? So it's like, oh, if pilots are, underrepresented by women, we're going to have more women pilots. And then you start pulling women with maybe lower test scores for, I don't know anything about flying planes, and then you pull them up where instead of giving it to like some guy with like a higher score, right? Because equity is about outcomes. It's not about who's got the best test scores, which is the reasoning. Which people obviously think is a disaster. And the reason why it doesn't work is because critical theory doesn't work in the U.S. because there's so many intersectionalities, right? The thing that the thing that the left loves, the diversity of our country, is actually the thing that crushes itself on its own legs. You know what I mean? Like if you're a part of one group and you're like, oh yeah, we have been oppressed. Like we have been oppressed based on our race. So yeah, we should get more opportunities to go to Harvard or something, right? But then just because that group like agrees with that part of it, they might not agree with another part of it. Whereas they're like, oh yeah, we should let people of my race get more opportunities to go into Harvard. But if they look at something else, they're like, oh yeah, we should have more women pilots. We should give women pilots who might not score as high as a male pilot, but we're still going to give this woman pilot a position as a pilot. And then like this person over here who's going to Harvard based on his race, like, wait, hold on, pump the brakes. I don't agree with that. So it collapsed on itself because people genuinely like reason, right? When they're an objective viewer of the world, right? If you're looking at the pilot situation, you're like, oh yeah, we should let the people with the highest scores become pilots. But then when it applies to themselves, they're like, no, we've been oppressed for so long, we should go to Harvard, right? And when you think about that, like every intersection don't align with the other groups. So that's why it doesn't work. Like it just ends up pissing people off because all people see is injustice towards the individual. When you give opportunities to like, don't cancel me, to a whole group of people based on identity. So where was I going with this? Okay, so if the left, which is true, they want to dismantle whatever, not the left, the far left, people that are fixated with critical theory, or they believe in critical theory, they want to They want to dismantle the U.S. structure of power or whatever. What do they want? They want equity. And what is equity? How do you redistribute wealth, opportunity, knowledge? It's socialism. That's what they want. They want socialism. It kind of blows my mind, actually, that the left still holds on the ideal of communism, even though it has been proven over and over and over and over again that socialism, communism, or however, there's actually never real communism, dude. They're always stuck at socialism. That socialism always leads to death and dying, dude. At least to poverty, dying, and fucking sadness over and over and over and over again. And you know what their argument is? I was like, yeah, just communism hasn't been applied correctly. And I'm like, it's been applied correctly every single time. Like, that is the outcome you'll get every single time. You know what I mean? And this is the issue with the ideology. Like I said, right? The ideology of critical theory is basically a Marxist theory. And some people are like, it's not. It is. Okay, you could prove me wrong. You could comment. You could come onto my podcast. Actually, I'll invite you to my home, and we could talk about it if you're willing to use reasoning. If you even use a little bit of reason, critical thinking, you will. The word critical is shared between critical theory and critical thinking, but they're two different things. If you apply even a little bit of amount of reasoning, you would see that socialism is a terrible idea, right? I could walk you through this right now, right? In critical theory, they want to talk about equity and they want to talk about redistribution, right? Make everybody equal outcomes. Everybody should get based on what they need, right? Socialism idea. Everybody should get houses. There shouldn't be rich and poor. Everybody should just get what they need, right? There shouldn't be billionaires. There shouldn't be people living in poverty. So how do you do that, right? You need to basically if you want to start it today, you want to break America. You go, okay, let's get rid of the United States as we know it right now. And they're like, okay, we have all this wealth, like we have billionaires like Zuckerberg, and we're gonna have to like redistribute some of this wealth. Okay, everybody's gonna have the same thing. So how do you redistribute the wealth? Well, you need government to do it, right? Therefore, socialism, right? They're gonna have the power over the means of productivity, which is jobs and property and whatever. Anyway, so you want to redistribute this wealth, and then you're like, okay, who's going to do it? Oh, the government. The government's going to redistribute the wealth. So then this government starts redistributing the wealth, right? They send soldiers or police over to my house or whatever. And they're like, hey, man, you have some Pokemon cards. You're going to have to give some of those up. And then I was like, all right, whatever, dude. I don't care about Pokemon. You can have them. But then you go to one house where they have very valuable Pokemon cards. They have, let's say, millions of dollars of Pokemon cards, right? And this person, the police comes around, they're like, hey, new law. We're socialists now. Redistribution of wealth. Give us your Pokemon cards. And he says no. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to fucking kill him. Right? Well, then they're not going to get to that point first. They're going to arrest him. Right? And then they're like, all right, you can give us your stuff. They're like, no. And then they'll just take it, which is robbery, or they'll kill them. And this has happened over and over and over and over again in socialist countries where they massacre their own people. And why do they do that? Oh, it's because they don't want to be socialists. But in order for socialism to work, is you need buy-in from everyone. And if they don't buy in, you have to murder them. Right? And then a lot of times it is successful, dude. You know, they've done this in China and the Soviet Union. They just kill a bunch of people. They're like, no, I mean, we want to have freedom. I want to keep some money that I earned. They know, we're going to kill you all. And then they killed them all. And then you know what happens? The government, the socialist government, starts taking control over the means of production. There's no more private business. It's all government run because centralized planning is the best thing that ever happened since sliced bread. So they start putting putting people into jobs, and then they're like determine how much you get paid. They're like, all right, the guy farmer is going to get paid exactly the same as the doctor or whatever. And nobody ever gets rich, right? Everybody stays poor. Actually, some people do stay rich. You know who stay rich? The fucking ruling class. You think you're going to get rid of the ruling class because of socialism? You don't. People in the fucking government becomes the ruling class. Dumbasses. Anyway, so what happens then? There's no incentive to work because you're going to get paid the same no matter what. You're going to get a minimum lifestyle no matter what. And you know what happens from there? People fucking starve. They starve to death. It's happened everywhere. When socialism happens, like people starve, they get murdered, and there's just sadness and despair. Every single country. Right? That happened in China. That happened in the Soviet Union. People were starving. And Soviet Union, they had to put billboards up to remind people not to eat their own fucking children because that's how terrible it is. And we got people in our country right now on the left thinking like, well, yeah, socialism is still good. Which I thought only people in like high school and like undergrad thought that. But once you get into the real world, you understand that's not the way the world works. You can't. No one will. It doesn't work because everybody they have selfish tendencies to want more for themselves, right? They want a more comfortable life. But if you're saying like we're gonna give people based on what they need, and you're like, what the hell? So socialism doesn't work. It always leads to death and despair, and using any ounce of reasoning, you'll get to that point. But for some reason, like it doesn't. And it's because the left is still stuck in an ideology of critical theory, which is funny to say the least. So all in all, I don't know. I've been ranting for about almost an hour, and I hope it makes sense because I was like, I need to get this out somehow. This frustration of like entering into political conversation that goes nowhere, and nobody should ever do it. And in summary, you shouldn't do it when even one person is basing their arguments on ideology, right? It can't be ideology versus ideology, meaning, well, God said to like, man, that's racist. Like that two people with different ideology will never ever come to a consensus. Neither will someone from the fucking independent, where they're coming from reasoning, talking to someone with ideology, because they cannot be reasoned with. You cannot reason with terrorists, right? So, for example, if someone from an issue from the right who is based on the ideology of the right, which is religious ideology, they're like, and you're trying to broach a subject with them, let's say specifically gay marriage. You're like, okay, if we live in a world where we believe that all people are equal, should be treated equally, and they shouldn't have no one should have special treatment. Therefore, if a man and a woman can get married, maybe we should let two kissing bros get married as well, right? Because if we are all equal, they have equal rights, they have equal access. Why are you discriminating them because they're two boys kissing? Right? That sounds like a logical and reasonable take to have. But someone on the right who has a religious ideology will be like, no, it's God said. And you're like, well, we live in reality. They're, no, it's a sin. So you can't reason with them. You laid out a reason, and you're like, hey, all people are equal, therefore everyone should have equal access. Therefore, if a man and woman could get married, then two dudes should be able to marry. It's very reasonable, but they're not going to have it because they're living in a world where their beliefs are based on assumptions that God is the ultimate judge or whatever. And he's like, no, you can't. Gay people can't get married. It's annoying. Why do you even don't even bother having this conversation with them? And same thing with the people on the left, right? You're like, oh, hey, bud, I was thinking about, the last this whole like DEI thing. I think DEI is actually racist because it's giving preference to people based on their race. For example, proven fact, Harvard has been sued because it has come out that they are discriminating against Asian people. That Asian people have to, on average, score 200 points higher on the SATs compared to the rest of the groups to even be considered as a future student at Harvard. And they're giving other demographics, we're not going to say who, but we know who, more points based on their ethnicity or the certain race. So therefore, I think we should get rid of DEI because it's racist. And then, you know what the people in the fucking critical race theory said? They're like, no, you're a white supremacist, you're racist, you're sexist. And I'm like, oh, actually, no, I'm Asian, I'm not even white. And he's like, no, you're a white supremacist. There's really there's no reason at all to even engage in this discussion with them, right? One is based on facts, the person in the middle, and then the other person is based on ideologies, beliefs based on assumptions. They will never move away from that. Like my friend said, you could give me 20 facts and I won't change my belief. Peace out, guys.